manufacturing in the past, and so this year's funding request that opened it up to all of the programs, and we sent out a survey to the different teachers that are heading up these programs and see what their needs would be for this school year, and have a list of those. We really have our focus on college, stigma with vocational classes, skill or whatever, but it's really about college and career readiness. We serve all different types of academic levels, from students that need credits to graduate to top 10 students in our school. These programs, especially the new ones with entrepreneurship and business, engineering, all of our CTE programs, the goal of all of our half-day CTE programs to include industry recognized certifications, dual credits with articulations with Tech, Vincent's, State. So that's just a little background of what we have going on. If these programs succeed, see maybe from me work even adding a few additional programs. So as of right now, some of the needs would be the focuses would be in the Entrepreneurship Academy, our Innovation Lab, listed Notre Dame's Innovation Lab, some of the equipment that they have is really kind of trying to replicate things that they have going on there. SolidWorks certification, also focusing on our Entrepreneurship Academy, commerce, some of the things that we've been doing with our Leadership Academy. In addition to that would be welding. So we are currently shifting around facilities with welding going to Chandler Elementary, cafeteria, current construction today right now, with power, air filtration systems. A lot going on there in welding. We do need some additional equipment along with the forklift. Forklift gives students an opportunity to get their forklift certification, along with the material building. So radio, TV, right there with some of the things that we're doing in terms of covering different things that are going on around the school community, including athletics, plays, music.
I'm gonna make you pause for just a second. We're gonna give you a handheld mic because you're really, really tall. But we don't want you to hunch, so we're just gonna give you a different mic because otherwise the people online can't hear you.
So you can move around. Like,
Right, you can dance.
why don't you just hold that like that?
Sorry, it's probably tall.
Check. Sorry, I thought you were going to cut me off.
No,
thought you-
I just want everyone to be
I
able
thought you were
to
gonna go,
hear
"That's-
you.
So now Jack just sound done.
I actually was about done, but I know that, again, the focus has been on advanced manufacturing, but we really wanted to include all of our programs and some of the needs that that needed to be met, some immediate needs there. You obviously can see what the descriptions are. I try to include descriptions of all of these and how it would affect student outcomes. Clearly, CTE is outcome based. So it's not like you just sign up, you get a high school credit, you graduate from high school. These are outcome based in terms of, like I mentioned before, industry recognized certifications and also dual credits. So to be able to check that box with the state, we have to have a minimum of 9 dual credits. So it's a really, really big deal. And these are things that have not been done at Goshen High School in the past. And if they have in CTE, it's been on a kind of much smaller scale. So I would love to answer any questions that you might have. I certainly can keep talking.
We've always had some members before ask, what is the male, female percentage?
It's always going to be a focus in CTE with non-traditional student participation. That's if 75% or more in terms of gender in the industry is one gender. So example of that would be nursing. So obviously a non-traditional student in nursing would be male, non-traditional student in cosmetology would be male. A non-traditional student in female or in welding would be female, and then advanced manufacturing and some of the other ones. So certainly there is a focus there, but sometimes it can be difficult recruiting those students. It's just a little intimidating to go in, regardless of which way you're talking there. And so I think promoting what we're doing. Our CTE student of the year was a welding student last year, a female welding student. And so getting the word out there that it's a safe environment for students to come learn if you're a non-traditional student certainly is and will be a focus at Goshen High School. So I don't have exact numbers there, but we have non-traditional student participation in all of our programs. Some of the numbers we'd like to see increase, but it is a focus, certainly. Yep.
I remember when we were in high school, on the mechanics program, and they would actually do work. The prices of cars if they needed to. Here's some of the things like the 3D printers and laser and whatnot. Is there opportunities for members of the public to hire these students through the CT program to do like custom laser projects?
Yes. Okay. So our student-led enterprises. So our entrepreneurship academy will be business students that will be taking the lead on exactly what you're talking about. So my background briefly is a CTE director over the last 10 years or assistant CTE director. We've done just that. So taking my experiences, my previous job, we do marine mechanics and winterizing and automotive and brakes and all this different stuff. Welding art is another one. We've even talked about opening up an art gallery, which is something that I've done in the past too, that kind of displays some of the artwork of the students. So yes, there will be a student-led enterprise led by our entrepreneur. Part of the curriculum for the Entrepreneurship Academy will be digging into what these different programs do and what they can sell. Now, there's a little bit of work to be done in terms of how you pay a student that's in school and how exactly that works out, but we'll figure out those details. We've done that in the past. So yes, certainly we're open to community involvement, collaboration. And if there's things that you need, you got a unique project, whether it's building shelves or something that needs to be welded, we certainly are more than interested in doing that. And like I said, we will have student-led enterprises that will be focused on doing that for each of the programs. It's going to be really cool. So if a student wants to start a car detailing business, cool. If they got a product that they want to invent or they got an idea that they want to go for, they can work with our engineering, design and development. It's kind of like having departments in real workforce. That's exactly what we're in with.
Any other questions, comments, from members?
So we do have a funding request further down on the agenda. So we have one more presentation and then public hearings on our TIF amendment resolutions. And then item D under request would be to approve this funding request. But I think you guys could also make a motion if you support this to move it up on the agenda to hear that now. Yeah, can you amend it after you've approved it? That's fine too. I am perfectly
I got all
fine with
night. Hey,
that. Okay, fair enough.
that's okay. Any other questions for me?
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
About this close to the mic when you're speaking.
It is. Yeah.
Pass it around.
Okay.
All right, we will, our next presentation is the College Avenue Phase 3 project progress and updated cost estimates.
No.
Check. There we go.
There.
I'm Seth Boyd with American Structure Point. Going to give a quick project update and some scheduling, cost estimates, that kind of thing for the College Avenue Phase 3 project. Next slide, please. So this is the general project area, which is just west of 9th Street and the railroad tracks, going all the way to just west of US 33. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So this shows kind of the proposed typical section of the roadway. What we're planning to do with College Avenue in this area is a full depth reconstruction of the roadway, widen the roadway out to have one travel lane in each direction, along with a two-way left turn lane. We'll be adding curb and gutter, drainage improvements, so new storm sewer, all that kind of thing, as well as pedestrian improvements. So as you can see here, west of 15th Street, we'll be having a 10-foot multi-use path with a 5-foot buffer, and we'd have ADA curb ramps at the intersections, all that kind of thing, and tie in the existing pedestrian infrastructure to that new multi-use path.
That's from 15th Street.
That is west of 15th Street, correct?
So 15th Street west to just past the railroad.
Yes.
And it would be on the north side of the roadway. So it would tie into the 9th Street Trail.
But it wouldn't go east from 15th Street.
Next slide.
Yes.
The tracks at 15th Street.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
What's been this many TVs?
Yeah.
Okay. So east of 15th Street, it is essentially the same typical section, except that we're adding a 5-foot sidewalk to the south side of the roadway. So that 10-foot multi-use path will run the entirety of the project.
But in the area adjacent to Greencroft and the housing on the south side of College, there will also just be a standard sidewalk.
Right. So, but you're talking about a 10-foot multi-purpose path from 9th Street to US 33.
Yes. Which will connect to the new multi-use path on the east side of 33, and the 33 project that is under design currently will have a multi-use path. So it'll be a lot of pedestrian connectivity there. Looking at the schedule, we just submitted stage 1 plans to NDOT in June. So the next milestone is the preliminary field check, where we meet with stakeholders, utilities, and kind of go over the project in the field to kind of find out if there are any issues we need to be focusing on as we move forward in design. We're looking at doing that late 2025, early 2026, targeting final design in spring of 2029. And then utility relocations would occur in fall 2029 through, that should say summer 2030, that's my bad. And construction then would begin either in fall 2031 or spring 2031. And we'd anticipate probably 2 years for construction. Looking at the budget, the thing you'll notice first is the highlighted numbers, which are a little bit bigger than the original budget. Just kind of wanted to give you an idea of how we come up with these numbers. So this is the first estimate that we've done for this project. So at stage 1, what we do is we look at the plans that we've created, we figure out the quantities that are required to create this project. And then we look at past projects from NDOT's database and use those to come up with unit costs. And based on that, we come up with the total project budget or cost estimate. We tried really hard to make sure that we included everything in this cost estimate so that we could give you a good number to use moving forward. So we're pretty confident in this number. It is a big increase, but in the time that this project has been alive, a lot has happened, and prices have unfortunately gone up quite a bit. just wanted to note as well, the right-of-way costs, those will be determined by an appraiser at a later date. So that number could change along with the railroad costs. We'll be coordinating with the railroad for that crossing, and that number might be a little bit different when we get to the final number.
Is your $13 million number what you're projecting it'll cost in 2030?
Yes.
So if it was today, it would be 6.5.
No.
I think that's important to understand. What do you think it would be today? Because I mean, we've seen escalations. So to sit there and say $13 million 5 years from now,
Mhm.
I think that's very bold of you to make a prediction like that, because I think it'll be more than that.
Okay. I think we included a 3% inflation number on that.
Based off of what's your baseline number? Is it the 6.5?
No, it's a number based on the historical projects that are coming from NDOT. So like within the past year, those projects that have let, we're basing our numbers on those and then projecting that forward with a 3% inflation.
What is that number? What's your baseline number you're starting from and you're using the 3% inflation on?
I don't have today's dollars number in front of me. I apologize.
Yeah, when you show 6.5 million, that's what I see.
Yeah,
I think your number is starting.
that is what is budgeted for the project. So that is the initial budget of the project.
So when can you give us the number that it would cost today?
I could give you that number once I get back to the office. Okay.
And I think that we actually as staff may have that because we've gotten the engineer's estimate. I think we could even back it backwards.
Yeah.
The 6.5 number is what was anticipated when we originally applied for these funds in 2020 or 2021. Dustin, I don't know if you know the exact year, but we're already 5 years in.
So when you
And
say
so-
that was the number when we estimated in 2020,
Mhm.
so was that the estimate for when it would be built or for when it would have been built that day? So that again, that goes to the question addressed, totally different. And so then, I mean, that then can then really make it look whether or not these numbers are even realistic.
Dustin Saylor, Director of Public Works and Utilities. I think the other big thing was when these grant applications are submitted, it's a very high level estimate. So, stage one plans, they've got a survey that they're working with now. We're working with aerial photography, putting a best guess together. And again, this was a best guess 5 years ago.
And the reason why I'm asking is because what we saw in phase one, how it's, I want to be more prepared for when we come back in 4 years or 5 years, what it may look like.
And I appreciate their 3%, but we've seen a higher increase in the construction industry in recent years. I think to your point.
Right, exactly. That's one of the, be cautious.
No, you're fine. I guess I would point out that this number is kind of in line with what we saw for phase one in terms of cost per mile. It's probably a little bit higher, but it kind of matches, I think, as well as phase two. So those numbers are all kind of coming in similarly. So we feel good about the number we have here. Just wanted to kind of show the phasing of the project that we're looking at from maintenance of traffic standpoint. So what portions of the roadway would be closed down, and also, as a potential phasing of the project into like a 3A and a 3B, if that was something that would be helpful in terms of funding or budget, kind of splitting it at 15th Street, that would potentially be an option that could work for the project. And we have brought this budget to MACOG. We have the quarterly meeting with them on Thursday, so we'll be discussing that, and we'll keep discussing that with the city and MACOG, this current budget, and we'll figure out something that works for the project.
Are you guys taking the fire station into consideration with your road closures and whatnot? Just because that's a really busy thoroughfare at the fire station.
Yeah, so this closing is basically at the fire station so that they have access from one side or the other, no matter what.
Just to clarify in my mind, I thought phase two was just 9th Street to 15th Street. So you're showing us phase two and phase three?
No, I'm sorry. This is phase one and phase two of the phase three project. That's a little confusing. That's
What
I
was your- What was
apologize.
your 3A and B then when you use that language?
That was further confusing. I apologize. So if phase 3 was to be broken down into phase 1 and phase 2, that this is what that is showing. But the entire project right now is phase 3.
Phase 3.
I think the intent would be, this has doubled, right, in cost. And so if MACOG is not able to continue with the 80-20 funding split, there could be a potential that we would talk to them about, all right, let's do all utility relocations as part of the first part, and then maybe just construct half of it as one project and then divide the other half out into, another DES number with the state. So in a way of trying to make it so that we can maximize the federal funding received, still get the project completed as planned.
Just more painful with more time.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of this, we know that phase 1, we were all surprised by the cost. So we have just completed, the preliminary engineering. We see these numbers, and so we are coming to you all, letting you know what we're seeing, letting you know what the full scope of the project is. These are looking at current NDOT numbers and then escalating them into what we think they may be. I'm guessing we are probably limited to a certain extent on how much we can escalate with MACOG and NDOT.
It's kind of up to the discretion of, the engineer and the city and everything. So it's really, we want to get it to a number that is correct. So if we think that it needs to be higher, we can make it higher.
I do feel better knowing that, we're starting off, and again, we will get you that number. I can't get to it from my phone. I looked, but for what it is today, if it were to bid today, and then we can decide as a commission if we think it needs to escalate at a higher rate, but at least it's already taking a rate that's escalated drastically in the last 5 years.
Just to clarify for me, when you say phase 1, you mean phase 1 of this project or
Yes.
phase 1 of the original project?
So
Came in higher than.
we have 3 College Avenue projects. So College Avenue phase 1 starts at US 33 and goes east almost to the railroad. So just past Century Drive. We are working with American Structure Point on that project. That is the one that we have been discussing over the last several months that came in much higher. And so,
That's what you meant by phase 1.
yes.
Okay.
Phase 2 of that, which is the second project in line, would be the portion from the railroad east to the city limits. That would be the section that's adjacent to Brinkley RV and that industrial complex going under the railroad. And then this is College Avenue phase 3, which goes all the way from 9th Street east to US 33 and completes that whole section of roadway. This was originally phase 2, but then the Brinkley one shifted, and now all the numbers are messed up. But we have 3 different federal projects along College Avenue.
Just a general question, and this may be for you or for even Dustin. How do we determine the type of road we're putting in? So this one is being designed as a, 2 lanes with a center turn lane. What determines the need for that in this corridor? And how do we determine that, hey, we want the 10-foot multi-use path plus a sidewalk? Where does that determination come in? Or is that just an arbitrary, this is what we like, this is the best case? Is that always needed? Because if you go back to, I'm just gonna say, the 2-lane road with your normal sidewalk, you reduce your costs, you reduce your land acquisition, just generalized question.
Yeah, so part of it's traffic counts. And so we look at traffic counts and turning movements. And so we have numerous turning movements in that. And so your free flow of traffic. So we've got a lot of driveways. And so that's slowing down turning movements. So that kind of pushes you into that left turn, center left turn lane. The cross section, yeah, definitely the right of way is an issue in there. Definitely the cross section then for the multi-use path, where we're looking at those points of connectivity. So our next primary point of connection is Kircher Road. Plymouth Avenue is another one where we have high density residential colleges there. And so this really is going to provide that connectivity for the college to get up there. I think right now they probably walk through the back campus and then up 15th Street to get in. And then when we get up to 15th Street West, the purpose for that southern sidewalk is it's pre-existing and is frequently used by Greencroft as an internal loop. There really is not an additional connection beyond, you can go 15th Street north and you can go a portion down south, but it does not actually connect to the industrial park. It basically services Greencroft. And so they have, we have property right across the street. We watch people on cycles and walking. I mean, they use as part of their loop. So to get rid of that, we think would be detrimental for the Greencroft portion. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it's a general philosophy. How we, I think that's important to know because it is an expansion of an existing road.
Yeah.
Which will cost more money. So it's just putting that in perspective. I think.
And we're continuously focused on that multi-use path connection. Working with NDOT, they're offering that north-south connection for us. So along the new US 33, we're going to have basically all the way from Monroe Street down to Kircher Road. So we'll have all these connections. And so it gives people that opportunity then to say, am I going to drive the car? Or am I going to hook onto the bicycle and go down to these locations without driving? And that really for long term is kind of a goal for communities that are growing.
Is there a big cost difference between a 5-foot path versus a 10-foot path?
There's double the cost. But yeah, I mean, it's to be multi-use, we need at least 8 feet.
What runs along College Avenue now in front of
Probably not even 4 foot. It's probably 4 foot at the sidewalk today.
Right.
on the north side?
Yeah, I would think so.
I don't live over there, but I certainly, when I drive through, I hardly ever see anyone on it.
And I think part of the issue is it doesn't connect to anything.
Sort of
So
hit and miss. There's a few open sections on that north side.
yeah, I think it goes down and will connect to in front of your neighborhood. It connects to US 33. I think we can go across now with the new sidewalk we have on College there, but then it goes down to
Ends at
15th Street is where it ends. And so there's no further connection to the
No, I don't discount the
west.
fact that we need to connect. That's a connection that's been missing for a long time. I was just curious if there would be a huge cost savings in both right-of-way acquisition and also construction costs if it wasn't a 10-foot path versus a traditional 5.
So typically, we do not want to see bicycles on sidewalks, correct? But when you get to the multi-use trail, then it's acceptable because it's wide enough. So we would want to be at minimum 8 to keep bicycles off the roadway. And so I think
we have a token bicycle path from the railroad tracks to 15th Street, but it really does not meet a lot of the qualifiers for being a
share, right?
It's more of a share row. I mean, because we do have
it's just a shoulder.
no separation. So if you want to make it multi-use, multi-purpose for all riders, you wouldn't want your 5-year-old riding in that 2-foot path along College Avenue.
Is there a way to kind of follow up on, I think Brad asked, I'm not super in love with that center turn lane. And I don't know if there's a better alternative than that. I mean, there is one like that on the south side of Goshen on State Road 15 that I spend a lot of time at, and it can be a real disaster there because you've got people entering into that center lane early and they're both wanting to turn opposite directions, and it can get a little messy. And yeah, I mean, I've just seen that firsthand, how it just doesn't work very well, in my opinion, to be honest.
I think I remember calling them suicide lanes.
But we also have them on Kircher Road.
That makes me really nervous because you're going to have people going in that lane.
Right. We currently
Same
have
time.
the same concept all along Kircher. So all the way from 15 to 33. There's just a designated center turn lane. I don't see it as much of an issue there. Maybe because there aren't as many in and out. I think on 15, there's just a lot of curb cuts where people are turning in
Problem is when
close
you have curb cuts
proximity.
across the street from each other.
Right.
That's where it gets dicey.
Right.
You got the same sort of thing at on 119 there at Larmer at Black Squirrel Golf Course and
Yes.
the Clover Trails.
Right.
It's just center turn lane, and depending on which direction you're going, you can get a little squirrely there.
Yeah.
Kircher Road, most of the house, almost, well, every house is on the south side, and there's just a handful of curb cuts on the north side.
Right.
So you don't have
As
you don't
much.
near that issue.
I think the concern with making it just one lane in each direction is that a semi waiting to turn in to Martin's is going to completely stop traffic, especially with railroad crossings and things of that nature. The section of College Avenue east of US 33 will have the center turn lane. Again, that's a lot of residential on the north side, more industrial on the south side.
And this will turn into a dedicated turn lane at like intersections and, you know, bigger curb cuts. So like Martin's, you know, it'll be a left turn lane.
During that 2 years of construction,
Mhm.
whether you break it down into parts or not, I mean, is it total closure?
I would say for like the 9th Street to 15th Street, while that section is being worked on, yes. I mean, local traffic obviously has to be able to get to their residential properties, but it's not going to be for Goshenites to cut through.
Correct. Yeah.
There's really no other option.
Right.
It's pretty much when they rebuilt Kircher Road there on the west of Maine.
Yes,
It was gone.
yes. And that's the only way to properly do it if you're rebuilding a roadway.
And for safety purposes.
Yeah, we would have to do a significant widening to make it, you know, passable for traffic during construction. And yeah, they'd be close to the construction workers.
Fun.
Any other questions, comments?
This is a MACOG project,
This is a MACOG project.
which we've already been approved for.
Yes.
And so we
So-
don't want to go down a rabbit hole where all of a sudden
We
cost
stop.
escalates so much where we would have to pull back somehow.
Right. So we have just gotten these estimates within the last 2 months. And we have already engaged in conversations directly with James Turnwald. As we learned in meeting with him over the last several months as staff, and I believe Brett, you were at that meeting, they do seek to provide as much supplemental funding as possible, but it's usually closer to the end when we're ready to go and we know the full costs. So I think that we will continue to refine the numbers.
Yes.
Look for savings where possible. I know we've already eliminated several curb cuts.
Yes.
For properties that the college has that they no longer use, but there was a curb cut. Those will not be replaced. So we're looking at all of the different components to this to ensure it makes sense at the time of actual construction.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a whole lot of the other half of the team from Structure Point here. If you have any other questions, all the utilities, the railroad.
We're gonna have utility issues.
Should we start now on that part?
Well, this is one of those NDOT
mean-
type projects where the utility work happens the year in advance of actual construction.
That does.
And that actually, they have more power
Okay.
because the NDOT's part of the process
Okay.
to get the work done. You guys can tell me if I'm lying, but that's my belief.
I'm just thinking about the issue that we had on East Link. I mean, Brian here can attest to that.
We're trying to be very proactive with utilities on this project. We're going to try and design our storm sewer early so that we can get those conversations going early in the project and start getting those work plans in and get everybody on the same page early.
So for clarification, I'm not second guessing the work you guys are doing or your timeliness of getting that done. It's the timeliness of the utilities of actually following through.
Yes, and we do everything we can to get them to follow the timelines. And there's only so much we can do, but we do everything we can.
I will say that on phase 1 of this project, the other side of 33, I think it's been successful thus far.
Yes.
That project will be letting in December of this year. That's the one we have been talking about over the last 6 months. But you guys have successfully coordinated with all of the different utilities and have received work plans. You're getting things all lined up and coordinated now. And that
Yes.
work will begin then next spring and will occur all of next year before the actual construction starts the following year. So I commend you on your relentless efforts to communicate with all of the utility companies.
We're doing our best.
It just feels, I just got back from a vacation, so I'm a little exhausted and so I'm overwhelmed by numbers, but it just feels like unreal numbers at this point. We're talking 5 years away. Who knows if these numbers are going to be real 5 years from now or 3 years from now when we start doing construction, and yet this project will have to be done. It just hurts that we'll not be able to do other projects because we'll be spending so much money on this one. No.
And we're going to try and keep our estimate pretty updated as we move forward so that, if there are changes or increases or decreases, everyone's aware of that. So we're going to try and keep everybody, up to speed on where the project's at.
And again, continue the conversation. So when we look at that $14 million number, our hope is that we only pay locally 20% of that the other 80% is covered by MACOG through their federal funding. Right now, that match is only sufficient for the 6 million number, and our goal is to either break it into 2 separate projects or, continue advocating to reach that 80% funding commitment so that the portion spent locally is smaller, obviously, than that number.
Any other questions, comments? Once again, thank you. All right, we are going to go into new business on the resolutions, and I'm to go to Becky on this one before we start on resolution 19, 2025.
All righty. So the one thing that we failed to note on the agenda, although it's posted in all places, is that for each of these resolutions for the TIF amendment, prior to hearing them, we need to have a public hearing on those items. So in the packet, I included a notice, the public notice that was sent out. The purpose of the notice is just to inform all taxpayers and interested persons of proposed amendments to several of our plans and allocation areas. This includes both the Southeast Consolidated Economic Development Area, the River Race US 33 Economic Development Area, and then the Lippert-Deerdorf area. Summary of the amendments included would be the expenditure of revenue for public safety, adding in the language for that. We revised the expiration dates on several of the different areas, expanded our eligible uses so that we are allowed to fund educational and workforce training programs. We expanded the areas in the Southeast Housing TIF, and then also in 2 small areas in the Consolidated River Race TIF. All documents have been available to interested parties to review if they so desired. Tax impact statements were sent out to all relevant entities. We do have Jason Semler here from Baker Tilly today, and he is happy to answer any questions you might have on the tax impact statements that were provided in your packet with the resolutions. But the notice did state that public comment would be heard today. So prior to making any moves on the resolutions, we will need to open it up.
I would like to open the public hearing up. Anybody would like to speak?
And this one would be for the resolution confirming the resolutions of the Redevelopment Commission adopted on April 8th, entitled Resolution Amending Declaratory Resolution of the Goshen Redevelopment Commission for the Consolidated Southeast EDA. So this one is specifically for the southeast area.
Thank you, Becky. Anybody like to speak? If not, we will close the public hearing. All right, we will go to resolution 19-2025. Resolution confirming the resolutions of the Goshen Redevelopment Commission adopted on April 8, 2025, entitled Resolution Amending Declaratory Resolution of the Goshen Redevelopment Commission for the Consolidated Southeast.
So for this area specifically, it's adding 3 parcels to the southeast housing TIF. These would be the areas that were purchased from the city by Cherry Creek. We're just adding them into that TIF. Plan revisions would be the updated expirations for Keystone 1, Century Drive, and Southeast areas. Authorized use of the revenues for police and fire, and also educational and workforce training. We followed all necessary approvals and procedures for this, published notice for the hearing today, and we are asking that this resolution be passed.
Any questions, comments from members?
I'll ask one question. I think it'll cover all 3 of them for me. The scenarios 2 and 3, you've got the different breakdowns of. Can you just explain those real quick?
Sure. On the various impact statements, and really for all 3 of these, as Becky mentioned, we've talked about before, they're scheduled to end at certain periods of time. So in scenario 2, we show if they were to end at that certain period, that shows that assessed value being passed through to the taxing units and showing a decrease in the tax rate.
Okay.
Scenario 3 says if you go forward with what we're planning on doing, then we're not going to be passing it through that assessment that year. It's going to be delayed. It'll still eventually get passed through.
Okay.
We're just delaying it. So we're just showing that if we don't do anything, the tax rate is going to go down to this amount, depending upon the area. If we go forward, it won't go down until later.
And so it looks like in this particular situation, it would go down by total tax rate.
You're looking at the
Decrease it
southeast area.
Yeah, just look at
by
southeast one.
Yeah, about 33 cents.
33 cents. Okay.
And it will still go down 33 cents. It will be gradual,
Sure.
but instead of going down 33 cents like 2033, now it's going to be until 2042.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And I haven't followed this, the new property tax thing that just got passed by Indiana government. Does that have an effect on us as redevelopment on the rates we get, or
It potentially could, because with Senate Bill 1, it did give additional deductions and exemptions to certain taxpayers to help reduce their property taxes. So typically, when they pay less property taxes, that's all growth. That means less TIF to the Redevelopment Commission. So it could impact the amount of TIF that we get in the future.
Thank you.
That's the sad news of the day.
Any other questions, comments, members? Anybody from the public like to speak? I'll come back to the members. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that has passed 5-0. All right, next up, we will open a public hearing for resolution 2025. It's now open.
I will state that this is for the Consolidated River Race US 33 EDA.
Anybody would like to speak? Not, I am going to close.
All right, this resolution, very similar to the previous one, it extends the expiration dates for the various allocation areas. Again, expands the use of our revenues to allow for public safety funding and educational and workforce training. It does add in 2 small areas, as shown on the exhibit in the resolution, along Elkhart Road and Pike Street. We have followed all procedures as stated and are requesting passage of this resolution.
I have to read the whole thing.
Yeah. Unless you really want to.
No, it's fine. Any questions, comments from members?
I'd just say that there were some questions at the city council about the added properties in this, and I think they were adequately addressed.
I think so. I think there was a lot of question, why would you add in areas? We had discussed that there are properties within here that are ripe for development. Either they're underutilized or vacant. And improvements to those areas may require some partnership with redevelopment in order to make it feasible. And so by having these areas expanded, it gives us that opportunity.
Was the conversation initiated by members of the board, council, or by member owners of the properties?
City council members.
They were okay with it after.
They ended up voting for it, yes. Yeah. I think once they, were you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so once Becky explained, I think that it made them feel better.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from members? Anybody from public like to speak? Do I have a motion to confirm the resolution 2025?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that has passed 5-0. And up next, we'll go to the public, open the public hearing of resolution 21-2025.
And this public hearing is specific to the Lippert Deerdorf Economic Development Area.
Anybody like to speak during the public hearing? If not, I'm going to close. We are closed. So up next, resolution 2021-25.
For this particular resolution, we are looking at extending the TIF allocation period for the Lippert Deerdorf area, specifically adding in the police and fire and educational and workforce training to our plan. We have been compliant in all of our procedural steps for this TIF amendment, and we are asking for passage.
Any questions, comments from members on this? If not, anybody from the public like to speak? Back to the members. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution 21-25?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that has passed 5-0. And up next, we will go to requests. Our first one is request to approve funding request for Goshen Community School CTE program advancement.
At the time that we put the packet together, I did not yet have this memo, but it was provided to you all yesterday. As explained earlier in the meeting, the total funding request is $98,895 for this coming school year. I will remind all of us that we have participated with Goshen schools for the last 6 years, and it has been very successful. We have allowed them to really grow their advanced manufacturing program. I'm excited to see the numbers highlighted in the memo that, 23-24, there were 30 students, and for this year, they anticipate 245 for their CTE program. I'm glad to hear about all the different certifications and steps they're taking. So I, as staff, support this request and would recommend a motion to move forward with approval of the funding.
Did we fund last year?
Annually, it's been just around 100,000.
And how did this initially get started 5-6 years ago?
So long ago, there was a significant concern that schools lost out on revenue because of the formation of TIF districts. Historically, I think it was a much more significant impact than it is now. But it is a fact that when these properties are located within a TIF, there is a loss to the school system. Again, I don't think it's as dramatic as it used to be because of changes in how they figure their funding, but it was a way for us to give back to Goshen schools and help them really invest into a program that benefits the students in a significant way and benefits Goshen as a whole with the skills that they're learning. Brad, you've been involved
Yeah. and
the
I
whole
would
way
say,
through.
A lot of credit goes to Mayor Stutzman at the time. He was instrumental in seeing the gaps that were there. And I think he was one that brought it up for discussion originally at the time. And just really the collaboration that the school system has had with the city for decades is, and we're unique because it's pretty unique to have a school system that is almost solely within the city limits like this. So, I mean, we are one and the same sometimes when we look at things. So it's just having the partnership is appreciated and really shows how we can collaborate and really benefit each other. When public education often is frowned upon in a lot of people's eyes these days. We do a lot of great things that doesn't always get realized anymore.
I think I'll kind of add on to that too was the fact that I think it was around 2012, 13 redevelopment. We were offering money for job force training, I believe through Redevelopment Commission.
Yes, we did.
No one ever took advantage of it. No company ever took advantage of it.
Right.
But that was kind of I think the initial kind of push into that. And well, no existing companies want to take advantage of that. The school system with what they're doing now, the job force training that would then feed into our local industries, which are paying the TIF in most cases.
Absolutely.
So
The most of the request seems to be capital outlays for these CTEs. Do we know what percentage of their budget we're helping?
Pretty minimal.
Pretty minimal. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, but I mean, with our funding continuing to get more and more squeezed, this is stuff that we might be able to buy one of these things in a fiscal year anymore. So I mean, we're getting less and less dollars per student every year. So when it comes to replacing a HVAC unit or buying a forklift, unfortunately, we're having to go with the HVAC, even though they're drastically different in prices, but we go ahead.
The only reason I was asking is that I didn't want the program to get dependent on the Redevelopment Commission for the funding of the expansion of the program, so that all of a sudden we cut them off, but then they're
No, I mean,
hanging out.
it's like anything, you find avenues to try to do it. This has just been a good partnership that's worked. It's appreciated. If we wouldn't get one of these things, you'd figure something else out. We may not expand into some of these areas, but we've got interest in it. And so much focus was on other ways of educating students for so long, and we got away from more hands-on training. I think this is just a movement that has changed over the last 15 years that a lot of people realize not everyone is going in maybe secondary or career in college or whatever. This is given that avenue. And we live in a community that has a lot of blue collar workers.
Yeah, I agree totally with the idea of this. I mean, training, learning skills, being able to leave school and be able, to actually make an impact in the workplace. I sort of appreciate what Jonathan said. Where does the dependency go if this funding doesn't happen? Does it come from somewhere else? What kind of a commitment is Redevelopment Commission willing to make years down the road? Is some of the things that I kind of am wrestling with here a little bit.
I will state that the very first year it was a one-time thing, and it was a significant success. And so on year 2, when they came back, we actually made a 5-year commitment with the schools to do $100,000 annually. That ended last year. And so this is their request coming back to us saying, is this something that, we want to continue? Do we want to put a 2-year cap? Do we want to put a 5-year cap? I think that's something for the commission to decide.
I wonder too, are there other avenues for the school to ask for other partnerships with other people for funding as well?
And there 100% are. I mean, we work with local industries as well, get things from them. We have community foundation grants we go after. So it's like anything, you prioritize things. And, so there's a lot of avenues. There are some of them were successful, some of them were not. I think we've also found here as of late, the federal government is not paying us now. we're supposed to receive millions of dollars here last week, and it was withheld. So some of our current funding is at risk right now as well. So, and we're tackling a lot of things right now that is just, where you roll with the punches and you do the best you can. But it's concerns that are out there.
I'll compare this a little bit to what the Redevelopment Commission has committed to with public safety. And we don't want to fund salaries. In this case, I'd rather not fund a teacher. Not anything, that's nothing negative against a teacher. I'd rather fund a hard asset that they then have, just like we're funding the purchase of, I think it's 5 vehicles a year for the next number of years. It's a hard asset, which, it's something they have here too. So,
And I think that's been a big part of how we have structured it. It's always been equipment purchases so that those are assets that continue long after the funding is there. It's not as if it's a staff person that needs an annual salary that runs the risk of not having a position next year if indeed the funding is not available. So I think we have structured it so that it's not so much.
And it may be worthwhile, because I know our commission has changed here, to maybe take a tour when school starts to see some of the things that have been put in place. Because if you go into our advanced manufacturing classes and see what these students are utilizing, I think you would be amazed. Some of it's been in place 6 years already, and it's got 15, 20 years left of life in it. So to that point, but what it's allowing are these kids to get certifications that allows them to go to work the instant they graduate high school, stay in our communities, and be
Properly trained. And
so they're not having to go to the career center. They're not having to go to a different program and may never return.
Right.
We're training them to stay in our community.
I appreciate the detailed request and seeing exactly what our money is going towards. Like everybody's saying, like, could just give you guys $100,000, then we don't see what it's actually being spent on. And I think this is a really great proposal. And it was interesting to see how you guys are going to be using these resources. I also just want to say again, I've said it before, I so appreciate Chandler being used and being purposeful to the community. I live in the neighborhood of Chandler, and I was very worried there was going to be a big empty building sitting in front of my house. And I see the excitement of the students walking to and from the high school. So thank you for that work that you guys are doing to allow kids that don't want to go to college to have something else to do.
and just my plug is the fact that we've got Goshen graduates running some of these programs, wherever John went. And Travis Peak is running the EMT fire. I mean, he's a Goshen High School graduate. And so that reinforces what Brad here just said. We want these young adults to stay in our community. And I think it speaks volumes when you've got leaders that are from our community teaching the same students. So.
And I just wanted to say, Brad, there's nothing against the career center because I went to the career
No,
center.
there's not. There's
Okay,
not.
Yeah.
No, but we could also say the career center is harder and harder for us to get our students into now because the demand from Elkhart schools themselves, they are taking the vast majority of the slots now. So
and Wani schools and
yeah, so.
Question, comments from members? Anybody from public? Anybody from public like to speak? I'll go back to members.
This is just a 1-year request is what
you
it's in
guys-
front of us.
Right now, there is a 1-year request in front of us. If you guys would like to,
And just go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. In our capital budget, our 5-year plan, is there anything, is this slotted in anywhere
I have it slotted in annually.
for the next 5 years?
Yes. And it would be at the commission's decision whether or not that's removed or used elsewhere, but I have just continued to place that annually.
Mayor Lichty, I know you're sitting back there. I hate to put you on the spot. Do you have, you're having a pretty good handle of the financial impact of what's going on. Do you have any reservations with the commission committing to more than 1 year?
I would. I think it would be
reservation.
prudent for us to just do a 1 year at a time at this point. It's not to indicate that we're not going to continue funding, but I think we don't, particularly in the 2028 time period, when the full extent of SB1 kicks in, that would dramatically shift the city's finances, and we'd have to take a hard look at every expenditure that we have. We know we're going to lose about $1 million over the next 2 years and then over $13 million in 2028 as things stand now. So I think taking a cautious approach would be prudent. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So plus I think what you had said for a lot of the new members having a tour as well would benefit before we make any other commitments. So,
Yeah. And I would be glad to work with John to get that set up once school's in session.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the request? To approve fund?
so moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that has passed 5-0. Up next, request to approve agreement with American Structure Point for Plymouth Avenue US 33 sanitary sewer design.
Staff is requesting approval of an agreement with American Structure Point to design a new 30 to 36-inch gravity sanitary sewer system that will allow us to abandon the existing Deerdorf lift station. This upgraded system is necessary to accommodate future sanitary sewer flows from the fully built-out Cherry Creek, the new South Wellfield, and also existing users along the 33 corridor. Approximately 4,400 linear feet of this new sewer alignment would fall within the US 33 corridor, extending from Plymouth Avenue all the way down to Deerdorf. Structure Point is currently working with NDOT to design the US 33 improvements and to ensure proper coordination and integration between their projects, our projects, and NDOT. We are requesting that the commission waive the standard policy to solicit professional services and allow us to enter into an agreement with Structure Point for this new sanitary sewer. We do anticipate that it will need to be within NDOT's right of way. It's also going to be in close proximity to a lot of other utilities within this corridor that they're already working with and aware of. And so we feel it is in the best interest of the project as a whole to work with them. The scope of work, you guys can see there was a lot of detail on what all will be required. Goal would be to finish up a design if this is awarded by spring of next year. Be ready to bid it in June of 26, get to work at the second half of 26 and finish up in June of 27. That is the timing that would be necessary for the new South Water Plant. So we are trying to work with that. Total proposed fee would be a lump sum not to exceed amount of $354,100. And this does include work along Plymouth Avenue from, I believe, 14th Street, Dustin, to US 33. So connecting in where we can tie into that gravity line there. And again, eliminate the need for one lift station within our system of 34 lift stations. 40. So we do have Structure Point here. They can answer way more questions about NDOT's project than we can, but we know that this piece is very intricately entwined in that. But our timing is most likely a little bit ahead of theirs, so making sure that anything that we do coordinates well with theirs seems important.
And we will be having the money to spend to build the project.
Yes, we do have funding for that built into the capital plan.
So yeah, I just want to comment on the funding. So Goshen Utilities is very appreciative of the support from the Redevelopment Commission. And I guess the comment about whether there's money or not, US 33 is coming. And our need to replace the sewer is a must. We've already committed to developments down south for Cherry Creek. And we're working on the South Wellfield. Without this improvement, that current lift station will not support, because that lift station accepts Century Drive, it accepts Brinkley, New Cherry Creek, the Wellfield. I mean, there is a lot of flow going to that lift station. And by allowing that lift station to go away, ultimately we can take wastewater flow all the way from County Road 42 by the airport. So this will be the longest sewer run in the city without pumping assistance. So it financially, it's not only the elimination of a lift stations are high maintenance, it's also the electric cost elimination associated with that lift station to go away. So we need to find the money one way or the other because it's a necessity.
This is just to clarify in my mind again. So the construction costs are part of the utilities budget?
No.
Will you be coming to redevelopment for the construction
Yes.
costs?
So we have
eventually?
actually factored this project. It's included in our approved capital plan right now. So this is a project that's been on our radar. It is allowing for expansion and growth for a lot of our TIF users on the south side of town. And so TIF participation in upgrades and improvements falls in line with what we do. So
this is just to design it.
yes.
And you're suggesting that we waive the standard policy because of their involvement in the US 33 corridor. They already know what's going on, makes it simpler, easier coordination.
We can let Structure Point comment on that too, but they've already surveyed the corridors. We're not investing again in the survey work. And as mentioned earlier, they direct the utility coordination. So we are in the forefront of that utility coordination discussion by using Structure Point.
So I think then you probably already answered. My next question is that they're not to exceed values, probably potentially less than if we don't waive this, we put out RFPs and someone comes in, they have to do more of the scope of work because they've already done it. They should, in theory, could be less.
I think that's very
fair?
likely. I also think that we may see there could be a lower price proposal, but that's not to say that they're not going to end up having to amend it for additional coordination. And so I think that this ensures that we are getting the best end product with the people most knowledgeable about the corridor. I think.
Yes, it's the difference between two different companies coordinating on a project and us coordinating with ourselves. So it's just going to be a lot smoother process.
Thanks.
Questions, comments from members? Anybody from public like to speak? If not, come back to the members.
Obviously, this is something that legally we can do. We can waive the standard.
Yes.
Okay.
So for professional services, there is no requirement to do an RFP.
Yeah, correct. So
We have just adopted our.
yeah, it's just the commission's policy, so you can waive.
Okay.
Waive.
I assumed you wouldn't put this in front of us if we.
Yeah, statutorily, when it comes to professional services or whatnot, you're not required to do an RFP. You can contract with whoever you would want to.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That has passed 5-0. Up next, request to approve agreement with American Structure Board for water utility upgrade and relocation design for US 33. Becky.
So this one is very similar to the previous, except for Dustin's probably going to have to stand up and talk a little bit of more technicalities for this. But we have learned with our new well field on the south side of town that there are going to have to be several water mains throughout the city that have to be upgraded in size to handle the flow from the south side of town to the north. One of those primary mains is along US 33. And so again, working with American Structure Point feels necessary to make sure that our upsized main gets placed in the right locations and is coordinated with all the other utilities. It's needed. Dustin, is it needed prior to the plant opening, correct? We're still learning as we go.
So we're still working with everything. It would be beneficial. Yeah, we're not going to have everything built out prior to the water plant.
I would say that a majority of the corridor along US 33 is in a TIF And so those are our TIF users, you know, they're the ones generating. This ensures that hopefully our water main can be installed at the same time as the construction of the roadway to minimize impact to all of the people along this corridor. I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, I think our primary goal, and we're still with whoever is selected as a consultant, NDOT has a longstanding policy we're going to have to work with NDOT on about not having pressure pipes under their road. But with the proposed cross section, there's not a lot of right of way left. And so there's going to be, with this project, coordination with NDOT to figure out where that water main can go. I believe, you know, looking at where the current water main is outside the pavement section. With it widening, you know, we'll likely have conflicts with the new storm sewer that's being proposed. So there's going to be some necessary relocations as part of that, even beyond what we would already need to upsize to allow for water to be moved from the south to the north.
So to just touch on the scope of work in the memo, it's relocating one of our existing lift stations near Marriott, shifting it about 75 feet to the east, designing a new 6-inch force main connecting to the other side of 33, looking at the potential for upsizing during design for future development. This would include replacement or upgrades to about 12,500 linear feet of conflicting water mains, which is a lot. It's also looking at the sanitary sewer that is outside of the scope of the previous agreement that we just approved. Notice to proceed would be, we would get working on this right away, working on it through the end of next year with them as they finalize their plans with NDOT. This one has a not to exceed lump sum cost of $533,300 and a much longer stretch of roadway as well. Again, this is work that's going to have to happen with the 33 project happening and with the new well field. And so we're just trying to ensure that we can get it done, hopefully in conjunction with the 33 project, and get the best possible product at the end of the day with the least impact to our residents.
I would just point out as well for this, we already have survey on the 33 corridor, so that's another kind of savings built into this. So once again, it's the coordination, it's the survey, it makes sense. I think.
Yes, it does.
There's talk here of this SRF per extra. Is that included in that 533,300?
So
That is not.
yeah. So we're going to have to look at all of our funding options as we go forward with this. 12,000 feet of pipe is a lot of investment. And so we're gonna have to find the money to do that. We've got a lot of capital outlays, you know, proposed well field. We're looking at any option we can at this point to minimize rate impact. Yeah.
If there's an application made to the state for the SRF funding or federal funds or any type of grant, then that's when that PER is needed. So I think until we know for sure, we don't want to rule out having to do that step.
Correct.
But we're still evaluating whether or not there's even opportunities.
With the loan we just closed on last month with SRF, we had some grant funds, lead, copper. I don't really expect a lot of that down in this corridor. But we were able to secure like a 3.5% rate, which is much better than you can get on the open market.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public? Members? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
It's how you're going.
I was waiting to see if
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's passed 5-0.
Structure Point team, thanks for being here and answering additional questions and
Thank you.
the presentation.
very much.
Up next, request for an amendment to the scoping agreement with GM Development Companies LLC for the New South Fire Station project. Becky.
The proposed amendment that is attached to the memo modifies our original scoping agreement with GM Development, LLC. This was the agreement that we did for the new South Fire Station. GM Development consisted of a team with BKV and also with Core Construction. Core was very much part of this process in helping us evaluate different materials and constructability as we were designing the plans. Ultimately, Core's costs would have been factored in at the time that we moved forward with the BOT. But we have made the decision due to all the uncertainty with city budgets to pause this project for now. We are going to have completed construction drawings and plans. Everything will be ready to go, at which time we could proceed. But instead of moving forward to a bond issuance and them recouping their costs in that method, we are requesting an amendment to allow us to pay the full amount to GM Development, which includes the $30,834 to Core for their time and efforts. That would bring the overall design cost to $647,159.17. So again, all of it is already approved except for that $30,834 to Core, and we're just requesting this be modified to allow that to be paid as well.
Any questions, comments from members?
They were a good company to work with.
They were
I thought
outstanding.
They did an
Very
excellent
much
job.
so. Yeah. Okay.
It was a very, very great process for the city to embark on. It was one of our first non-traditional design bid build projects. And they were a great team to lead us through that. I think we learned a lot.
Remember when we had all the different all the different company
Mhm.
teams that at the same, going through their proposal, they were the one that just really
Stood out.
and helped us through the process.
Yes.
So are you saying we've spent 617 some and change already on design?
No, we have spent the 647, but they don't have the right to request the reimbursement for Core's time because it was not in the original scoping agreement.
I'm still confused, sorry. We've spent 647 already?
So the project is substantially complete on design. That was our last directive to them was we learned, I'd say within the last 2 months, with all the changes with Senate Bill 1, staffing concerns at a city level that moving forward with construction was not ideal, but we didn't want to stop the process at like 90%. So we went ahead and completed all the design work. The only thing that wasn't eligible for reimbursement then to GM Development, who's been carrying all this cost, was Core's time, because that would have ultimately been built into the BOT agreement, the guaranteed maximum price. In an effort to be fair, because we were all acting in good faith, I support letting them reimburse them for their time and effort being part of our meetings, getting all the different pricing and costing and estimating, product recommendations, that type of thing.
I guess I'm still confused about the financials of
So
this.
yes, we have spent 600 and,
47,000.
well, we will have spent
No, you spent
17,000.
17,000 currently. We're
Yes.
proposing to spend
Okay,
another
okay.
30.
I
So
think GM Development has invoiced for the 617,000 they've invoiced for. Without that 30,000, they are entitled to based on the existing scoping agreement for the city to reimburse. They've requested to also be reimbursed for the $30,000 that GM has outlaid to Core for those services for the reasons that Becky mentioned.
It's got a general question too. Isn't the fire station being funded through the redevelopment commission or just the design?
It was going to be both. We were going to issue a TIF bond
Okay.
to fund it.
I guess I hadn't heard that it had paused.
Well, the biggest concern is going to be that with a 38% cut in the city's budget in 28, you
Yeah, I-
can't add staff to staff a new station if there's concern.
Vote to pause it. I think that's what you.
Yeah, I
guess I don't really, we did not.
Just-
I think it has been mentioned in the staff report
Yeah.
and things of that nature, but I think there's still so much uncertainty with the long-term budget that
So they have already received $617,000.
there's a claim in the packet for that.
So they
For the
actually
full
haven't even been
amount.
paid.
They've been carrying the cost, assuming that the
Wow.
cost would be paid at the time of a bond.
Okay.
Typically with BOT projects, whoever that had company, in this case it was GM, they cover all those costs of the scoping agreement carry then into the bond, and it's included in the final BOT agreement costs that are financed via the bond because the project's put on pause due to those budgetary issues. They're just the scoping agreement means they're still entitled to be paid for, but it's essentially we're not moving forward with the project.
But at the end of the day, we still have the full complement of plans
Yes,
and everything. So that way, if things would change
correct.
in the relative near future, it would be ready to go.
And if 3 years from now, if, stormwater regulations we have an approved site plan, we have approved construction drawings. They may need to be re-reviewed for code updates, things of that nature, but yes.
And that's has happened in other communities across the state where sometimes projects are paused with the BOT process and they pick it back up a year or 2 or 3 years later without too much issue.
Yeah, funding. I mean, because if it was planned on being part of the bond, obviously would have incorporated into that bond.
Correct.
But since we're just going to be paying this in one lump sum now, I'm assuming
We have the funding available. I will also note that as part of our capital plan, knowing that, the goal was to get this moving, I'd also built in debt service on a new bond that we're now not incurring. So it is a bit of a chunk now, but we're also not now owing that debt service.
Any other questions, comments from members?
just frustration, but not at not at BAK, not at core, not at the city staff, just frustration with the financial
Legislation.
straits that we've been put into.
Yes, I agree. Anybody from the public like to speak? Come back to the members. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that has passed 5-0. Up next, request to issue a request for proposals to purchase real property, Third and Jefferson Development Lot. Becky.
Staff is seeking approval to issue the attached request for proposals for redevelopment of the vacant site at the northwest corner of Third and Jefferson. Site was previously under agreement with River Art LLC. However, that agreement was terminated. We reissued an RFP about 2 years ago and only received one proposal from AP Development and were unable to reach a satisfactory agreement. Over the past year, we have had inquiries and are now asking for permission to reopen this, to solicit new proposals in hopes of finding a successful project. This site is about 0.69 acres. The average of the appraisals came at $171,667. Full price offers will be accepted at the commission meeting on August 12th. If no acceptable full price proposals are received, or if the commission will then consider less than full price offers at the September 11th meeting. So requested motion is just granting permission to move forward with this RFP.
Get many offers.
Me too.
Questions, comments from members?
So you outline the whole process with no full price off, regardless if we get a full price one or if it extends a month and we only get one that's less, under no obligation to accept.
That is correct.
Anybody else? Anybody from the public like to speak? Come back to members, one last chance. If not, do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that has passed 5-0. All right, up next, request to permission to pursue Community Crossings Matching Grant funding for Corey, Sourwood, Hackberry, and Firethorn reconstruction. Becky.
We are requesting the commission's approval to pursue Community Crossings matching grant funding for the reconstruction of Quarry Drive, Sourwood Drive, Hackberry, and Firethorn. All 4 roadways are currently included in our 5-year capital plan for full reconstruction with both design and construction costs already included. In response to recent legislative changes, anticipated shortfalls in city funding, and the understanding that we will be the primary funding source for projects within the TIF, we are requesting to apply for the CCMG funding to help extend the impact of our local dollars. They offer 2 rounds of this funding annually. Engineering typically takes advantage of 1 round and uses their local match with the paving funding that they have annually. We would then be requesting for the 2nd round using TIF as the 1.5 match for roadways that require reconstruction within our TIF areas. We see this as a way to take advantage of the funding that's available, maximize our dollars, and get as many of our roadways taken care of as possible. Typically, the opening for this would have been July 1st or the month of July. There were some legislative changes regarding this funding source, so it has been delayed, but we anticipate that it will come out before the end of the year. So we are working off some rough estimates that were put together by the engineering department. The summary sheet shows that they anticipate all of those roadways could be reconstructed. So basically just milled up and redo the base, put it right back as it was for just about $3 million, with 1.5% or 1.5 million being matched through the CCMG program. Asking for permission to pursue this and asking for authorization for the mayor to sign the financial commitment letter at the time of submission.
Any questions, comments from members? Anybody from the public like to speak? I'll come back to members. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is passed 5-0. Up next, requests for permission. Request for permission to enter into an agreement with Norfolk Southern for College Avenue Phase 2 Railroad Coordination Assistance. Andrew.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Lund, Goshen Engineering. So this is for College Avenue Phase 2, which is from Century Drive to the eastern city limits, crossing the railroad tracks. Project will involve widening of the roadway and actually a shared use path crossing as well at the Norfolk Southern Railroad at grade crossing just east of Century Drive there. The project will have to have crossing signal replacements because of that widening. And the railroad coordination, which is part of that, will include fees that Norfolk Southern Railroad charges for review of design plans and special provisions, construction estimates, and their administrative costs. So this is based on railroad design work for the Kircher Road reconstruction project, as well as recent examples elsewhere in Indiana. Engineering is providing an internal estimate of design costs for that review of approximately $100,000, and they'll provide a final estimate as they go forward here. We will be requesting funding participation from MACOG for that amount. However, there is a possibility that in this state fiscal year, the federal funds may not be available. So in order to proceed with the College Avenue Phase 2 design process, we are requesting the Redevelopment Commission approve funds for the full amount of the railroad's projected or estimated design phase fees and authorize engineering staff to sign. And I apologize that it was not attached, but Norfolk Southern's public project billing information form, essentially, which says that the city is the responsible party to pay those fees. And that then allows the railroad to complete the final preliminary engineering estimate. An agreement between the railroad and the city would be completed after the estimate is received, the final estimate. And then in the event that federal funds are available, our contract for preliminary engineering with the state would be amended to include a share of those costs.
What's the timeline on knowing when the funding participation from MACOG might happen?
I would estimate that they could possibly give us an answer in about a month. So with the soonest it could happen is a decision at the August meeting, which would be the first Wednesday in August. I can't say for sure that they could give us an answer by then, but that is the soonest that they could.
I will note that MACOG's fiscal year starts in July, ends in
just started.
June. So it has just started.
Okay.
I anticipate that they will not be willing to make too many commitments too early on without fully understanding some of the legislative changes. I look at this as it is a component to the project that has to be done. I know. I fully agree with that, but I mean, the alternative is we're going to have a really nice roadway on the west side of the tracks and the right side of the tracks, and the tracks in their very poor condition will remain untouched because we do not have the authority to design on their behalf. So.
But we could possibly come back to this next month.
We just won't get a finalized estimate of what it's going to take from Norfolk until we actually sign this form.
Right. They don't move unless you say that you're going to pay, or INDOT has to give them a memorandum of understanding is my understanding. So that then also takes commitment from MACOG, I believe, to even get to that step.
Which myth?
If the design costs end up being nowhere in the ballpark of $100,000, then what happens?
So the Kircher Road was $30,000 for plan review for design. That was in 2014, so a while ago. The more recent example was near Lafayette. That was $50,000 for a new at-grade crossing. So essentially, I just doubled it. That's my.
Yeah, we're trying to like give a worst case scenario. Sometimes it feels relevant.
It was one main line track we're crossing to, so I figured, hey, why not?
Big elevation.
There is. It's a poor crossing.
Quick question.
There's just something about this.
I understand something right. So Norfolk Southern requires that that document be signed in order to start their review process or whatnot. That's not a contract that commits RDC to expend that money until they get an estimate from Norfolk Southern of what their cost would be.
Correct. It is not an agreement. However, I would have to have you review it. I'm assuming it is binding in some form.
I guess my question would be I guess to follow up on Colin, maybe where he was going would be whether or not the commission can approve it at a not to exceed figure, saying they're comfortable with that amount, but if it was to be more than that, to come back. But yeah, I guess if Norfolk Southern is considering that agreement, I would need to look at it.
How about we make a motion to move forward only after legal fully reviews this and understands the binding commitment it enters us into.
Yeah, I mean, so if we do the suggested motion, are we basically committing ourselves to spending whatever amount it is for design? I guess that's, and I mean, Don, is that kind of what you were getting at too? I mean, like, I guess that's what I want to know.
They still have to provide us a final estimate. Their agreement is based on that final estimate. So it's, yeah, we are saying we're the responsible party for them to send invoices to, essentially.
Okay.
That will be, yes, we will foot the bill, but they're not going to start work.
Yeah.
Unless they won't start even working on an estimate until they have that in place.
So you signed something agreeing to the cost, and then now they have now they move forward with coming up with an estimate, and what the estimate comes up to be then is what they send you the bill for.
Correct. And this cost will not be communicated to Norfolk Southern. This is an internal estimate. This is for redevelopment's consideration.
I understand that.
Unless they're listening in right now.
Correct.
3 seconds. 5 seconds.
So
is there an alternative that we can come to
so
here?
confused today. Sorry, guys. So you're asking permission for us to authorize engineering to reach out to them to find out how much they will say the estimate will be, but we think it'll be about 100,000, at most 100,000. So if you so we're giving you permission, you do it, you reach out and you find out that it's going to be 200 grand. You haven't signed anything yet. You've just said, they're saying it's going to be 200. We thought it was going to be 100. We're not ready to sign anything. Or is it that they won't tell you how much it is until you sign something?
The latter.
Bingo.
Well, and
But
realistically, if
go
they
ahead.
spend time putting together an estimate and we don't move forward, I don't know, do they send us a bill for whatever time they spent putting together an estimate? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would potentially be appropriate, but again, that would be something that would be covered by an agreement.
Right.
So I guess, yeah, I think
Norfolk is difficult to deal with. I mean, it's
seems
just,
so odd because I know this is an internal document, but it is public. And so if they find out, oh, they're willing to spend $100,000, it's only going to cost 50, but we'll charge you $100,000.
I can only hope they pay that much attention to what we do in Goshen.
I just kind of,
I feel like that would be a win.
It just seems weird that we're committing when we don't know. And they're not even willing to give a quote until we've committed to pay an amount we don't know.
Yeah.
And I know you're giving an estimate and you're doubling it, trying to be safe.
Are there terms on that should be reviewed maybe first? Because that just seems really odd.
We'll make sure Don looks at it before submitting, just to ensure that we're not missing something. I saw the form that you had sent. I didn't think it looked like all that much. My guess is Norfolk is just making sure people aren't wasting their time.
I mean, how much of a time crunch is this? I mean, can we table it and come back to it in August?
I don't think they won't even look at it unless we've committed.
Right. I mean, it just delays everything by another month.
You could change the amount to something less than 100,000.
We could commit to 25,000. We could commit to 5,000, whatever.
I do feel like this is a more.
But we don't know that
complicated-
MACOG's going to help fund until we sign this.
until
Too?
There's an actual estimate.
Okay.
MedCog's not even going to entertain it.
Yeah, MACOG would also need that estimate from the railroad.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. And ultimately, I should say the city is the invoices come to the city. Even if MACOG participates, they provide a purchase order and they reimburse us up to a certain amount.
Let me try clarifying this in my mind one more time. So what you're asking is permission to enter into an agreement with Norfolk to design this. And you think it might be at most 100,000, but you're just asking for permission to enter into an agreement. Isn't that essentially what you're asking?
Asking for permission to have them prepare a cost estimate.
Right.
Yes.
But
There's no full agreement until after the cost estimate is prepared.
And so we don't know how much the cost estimate will be.
Correct.
Right.
It could be up to $100,000, but maybe more, but hopefully a lot less.
Probably
But
less.
hopefully less. Yes.
But you're just asking us to move forward and telling us it's going to cost us maybe 100,000.
Essentially,
Right,
that's
right.
that-
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
You have the gist.
I mean, if we don't give you permission to move forward at any point, nothing's going to happen. So we got to give you permission to move forward. Or if this will sit and be tabled and be tabled.
The alternative is I approach MACOG without an estimate, and I assume, will tell me to try to get an estimate from the Norfolk Southern.
Sure. Because they won't want to participate if they don't know what's going
Just like you.
on. Exactly.
Just like me.
Why- We're really just spinning in circles now.
Yeah.
I mean, we could change the amount if that makes anybody feel any better, but it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't
I think that the challenge is that Norfolk Southern, and this is true for all railroads and whatnot, they just get kind of special carve outs in federal legislation that allows them to basically set their own rules for how they're going to operate. And so they get to establish that they're not even going to do certain work to determine if they will allow a crossing or design a crossing or any of that type of nature until they've had whatever internal documentation they decided. And basically federal law and regulations allow them to set their own rules to do that.
It's very similar to utility companies. I mean, it feels very similar to what we deal with NIPSCO or.
All right, motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? please
Sorry,
say aye.
Brian.
You're
Aye.
fine. Opposed? And that is passed 5-0. I understand.
I mean, we arrived at where we knew where we were going, so let's do it, move on.
Up next, update Blackport Drive reconstruction. Andrew.
All right. Yes. So we've been around several updates on Blackboard Drive reconstruction. The brief recap. I won't go into all of it here, but previously, due to the large increases in estimated project cost, future maintenance issues with the shared use path through the wetland area, the Redevelopment Commission had previously moved to discontinue the project as originally envisioned. Now, following discussions with Aegis, our design consultant, with MACOG, with INDOT, it was discovered that if we ended the project, if we canceled it outright, we would be responsible for all of the design costs to date, which are just above $300,000 expended to date. As previously discussed, the Redevelopment Commission instead decided to proceed with the reduced scope Blackport Drive project that includes just a mill and surface of the road, which is a preventative maintenance project within the INDOT LPA program. He just worked with engineering to estimate cost for this revised mill and surface project, which also includes replacement of the culvert in the wetland area, paving mat within the wetland area, limited grading and curb to address problem drainage areas, and a new sidewalk between Lincoln Avenue and Dykstra Street on the east side of Blackboard Drive. So a mill and surface project plus some extras. The estimated cost for the revised project costs, are shown below, assuming a federal funding level of 80%. So the previous, in the column there in table 1, previous quarter estimates were essentially the previous scope of the project, the full depth reconstruction, except for in the shared use path through the wetland. You can see the large total there. Updated estimates now, significantly less with just the mill and surface scope. The federal funds awarded are currently awarded. That's why there's some cells missing there. So they've just awarded to design. They have pulled the funding in the rest of those categories, or have will not award. And the proposed federal distribution, or 80% of the revised cost, is listed there in the next column, and the local match after that.
So I think worst case scenario, we're paying $1 million, right? 1.1. Best case scenario is it's the full 80% match, and then we're paying a total of 375,000. Right?
So worst case would be more like 1.8, 1.9 million if we had to pay the whole project, but we're not gonna, yeah.
Won't have to.
We've got the
We've got the
we've got the commitment.
construction funds.
I'm sorry.
We have the committed construction funding from
Make,
MACOG.
so MACOG has given us preliminary indications that they have excess funds in the fiscal year 29, so it'd be 2028. We still need to request that funding. So this is sort of an estimate that we'll use to make that request. But in initial conversations with them, they said if you're rescoping, this is the fiscal year to look at.
So assuming MACOG pays us the $750,000, which is the 80%, this $1.9 million road will cost us $375,000. If we do nothing and walking away, we pay $300,000 for nothing. So for $75,000,
We're getting an awful
we're
lot.
getting some work done.
Well, if that Fed grant kicks up to 80.
Yeah. And MACOG has indicated that it will. And James,
Turnwald.
I would say, is from our meeting with him, if he indicates it would be there, I would trust that statement.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, so no motion necessary. We just wanted to provide the update to all of you.
Yes.
Thanks.
This project has been a lot like clear as mud and fluid, so.
And I did fail to continue on the next paragraph there on the next page, but we did discuss this with the East Goshen Neighborhood Association and Councilor Schrock. So, and they were
in favor.
They were in support of the mill and surface alternate. I mean, recognizably, of course, or understandably, I should say, disappointed that they weren't going to get that shared use path connectivity, but understanding that it was just out of the ballpark as far as costs. And I think this alternate, if we can construct it as estimated, addresses some of the particular local pain points with drainage.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, approval register of claims. I do need a motion to amend, add some new claims today to the packet.
Motion to moved as presented before us.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that have been added. Voted 5-0. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at the claims. Any questions or comments? If not, do a motion to approve the claims as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that has passed 5-0. Looks like we're monthly redevelopment staff report. Becky.
I will say we didn't do much updating because I feel like the packet was long enough as it was.
I think I looked at the wrong agenda because I thought it was going to be quick.
No. I will note that in light of the legislation, I think that a lot is going to be asked of redevelopment in the coming years. There aren't going to be a lot of other funding sources for a lot of projects. And so I don't know exactly how we agree what that looks like as a commission, but I think it's a topic that we all need to put some thought to. I would love to do all fun projects. I feel like all of our fun projects went out the window this spring. And I have a feeling a lot more water, sewer, utility upgrades, roads will be on the horizon. However, we have to remember that those two are important for all the TIF users that are generating the revenue. And so something to think about as we move forward. I will note, I need all of your signatures on the resolutions up here, so do not leave before you sign, please. That's it.
Go to open forum. Any other questions, comments? Anything that wasn't on the agenda? next regular meeting is August 12th, 2025 at 3 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.